The stars bent and twisted as the human ship emerged from the wormhole gate. Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, watching the alien space station grow larger on the screen. His heart pounded with excitement. This was it. Humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Coalition. Behind him, Ji-woo checked her tablet for the 100th time. She was a scientist, not a diplomat, but Earth needed her expertise. Someone had to explain human biology to the aliens in a way that wouldn't scare them. She hoped it would be enough. The space station called Viridian Prime hung in orbit around a purple gas giant. It was massive, easily 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Thousands of ships from different worlds docked at its many arms. The sight made Tae-hyun feel small, but also hopeful. Somewhere in that station, representatives from 47 different species worked together in peace. Soon, humanity would join them. Their ship docked without incident. The airlock opened with a hiss. Tae-hyun stepped through first, his boots clicking on the metal floor. The corridor beyond was built for beings of different sizes. The ceiling stretched high above, and the walls curved in strange ways. Lights pulsed in colors humans couldn't quite name. A figure waited for them. It stood on 4 legs, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. 2 large eyes dominated its flat face. And when it spoke, a device on its chest translated the sounds into perfect English. "I am Kix, representative of the Viridian Council. Follow me." The council chamber was enormous. Beings of all shapes filled the curved rows of seats. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that Ji-woo couldn't tell which end was the head. All of them turned to watch as the humans entered. Chancellor Velmora sat at the center of the highest tier. She resembled a tall, thin tree, with branches that moved like arms. Her skin was smooth and gray, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like wind through leaves. "Welcome, humans of Earth. We have reviewed your application to join the coalition. Before we proceed, we must ask questions. Our medical teams require data about your species." Tae-hyun nodded. This was expected. "Of course, Chancellor. We're happy to share anything you need." A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a rotating image of a human body, with data scrolling beside it. Ji-woo recognized the scans they had sent months ago. She had helped prepare them. "Your species is classified as a predator," Velmora said. The word sent a ripple through the chamber. "Your eyes face forward. Your teeth are designed to tear flesh. On your world, you hunted other creatures for food." "That's true," Tae-hyun admitted. "But we've evolved past that. Most humans haven't hunted for survival in thousands of years. We grow our food now." Your planet has experienced 5 mass extinction events," Kix interrupted. His voice was sharp. "Each time, nearly all life died. Yet your ancestors survived." "How?" Ji-woo stepped forward. "We're adaptable. We learn to use tools, to work together, You survived an ice age," another council member said. This one looked like a floating jellyfish, with tentacles that sparked with electricity. "Your species crossed frozen wastelands with nothing but animal skins and fire. You ate whatever you could find. You outlasted creatures stronger and larger than yourselves." "Yes, but your bodies produce adrenaline," Velmora continued. "A chemical that increases strength and speed when threatened. You can ignore pain. You can function with injuries that would kill most species. You have redundant organs. If one fails, others compensate." The hologram changed. Now it showed human muscles, bones, and organs in detail. Red warnings flashed beside certain features. "Your bones are dense and strong," Kix said. "Your muscles can exert force far beyond what your size suggests. Your jaw can bite with over 100 kilograms of pressure. And your immune system." He paused. "Your immune system is aggressive. It attacks foreign bodies with extreme prejudice. You carry dormant viruses that could devastate other species. Taehyun felt his hope crumbling. We came in peace. We've studied your cultures, your laws. We want to join the coalition, to share knowledge, and you also consume poisons for pleasure. The jellyfish creature said. Alcohol, caffeine, capsaicin, substances that would harm or kill most species. You ingest them willingly. Those aren't really poisons, Jiwoo protested. Not to us. You have sent us your history, Velmora interrupted. Her branches trembled. We have studied it carefully. In the last 5,000 years, your species has fought over 14,000 wars. You have created weapons capable of destroying your entire planet. You have hunted hundreds of species to extinction. You have polluted your air and water, yet continued to thrive. The chamber fell silent. Taehyun looked around at the faces staring down at them. Some showed fear. Others showed disgust. None showed welcome. We are also capable of great compassion, Taehyun said quietly. We create art and music. We write poetry. We care for our sick and elderly. We have laws against violence. You are persistence predators, Kix said. The words hung in the air like an accusation. On your world, humans hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You can run for hours without stopping. You can track wounded animals for days. You never give up. That was thousands of years ago, Taehyun said. His voice rose despite his efforts to stay calm. We've changed. We've grown. We've achieved peace on our own world. We've eliminated poverty and hunger. You have achieved peace for 70 years, Velmora said. 70 years. After millennia of warfare. Forgive us if we find that unconvincing. The Chancellor raised one branch. The chamber grew quiet again. We have made our decision. Humanity's application to join the Galactic Coalition is denied. Your species is classified as Class 5, hazardous. You are to be quarantined to your home system. A military blockade will be established at the edge of your solar system. No human ships will be permitted to leave. No coalition ships will be permitted to enter. This quarantine will remain in effect indefinitely. Taehyun felt as if he'd been struck. You're imprisoning us? For being different? We are protecting the coalition, Kix said. His tone suggested the matter was closed. We have seen species like yours before. Species that survived through aggression and adaptation. They always cause chaos. They always bring violence. We will not allow that to happen here. Jiwoo's hands shook as she clutched her tablet. Please, if you would just give us a chance. The decision is final. Velmora said. You will be escorted back to your ship. Return to Earth. Tell your people that the galaxy is not ready for humanity. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you have proven you are truly peaceful, we will reconsider. The journey back to the ship passed in a blur. Taehyun couldn't speak. They had come so far, hoped for so much, and it had all fallen apart in less than an hour. As their ship pulled away from Viridian Prime, Taehyun watched the station shrink on the screen. Somewhere in that massive structure, the Council was already discussing how many warships to station around Earth, how many weapons to aim at humanity's home. They're afraid of us, Jiwoo whispered. I know, Taehyun said. They looked at everything that makes us human, everything that helped us survive, and they saw only monsters. The wormhole gate opened before them. Beyond it lay Earth, and the impossible task of explaining to 8 billion people that they were unwelcome in the galaxy, that their strength was seen as a threat, that their resilience was seen as a danger. As the stars twisted and they jumped back toward home, Taehyun made a silent promise. One day, somehow, humanity would prove the Council wrong. They would show the galaxy that survivors could also be saviors. But first, they had to figure out how to live in a cage. 5 years had passed since the blockade began. Captain Daejung sat in his chair aboard the cargo vessel Harmony, watching the distant lights of coalition ships patrol the edge of the solar system. He had been making this run for 3 years now, hauling supplies between Mars and Jupiter. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The blockade had changed everything for humanity. No trade with alien worlds. No exchange of technology. No exploration beyond their own sun. Earth's governments had protested, sent messages, offered treaties. The coalition ignored them all. As far as the galaxy was concerned, humanity was dangerous and needed to stay locked away. "Captain, we're picking up a distress signal," said Subin from the communications station. She was young, barely 23, fresh from the academy. Daejung sat up. "Where?" "Just outside the asteroid belt, near the Hygeia sector. That's beyond our patrol zone," the navigator said. Daejung thought for a moment. A distress signal meant someone was in trouble. The coalition had made it clear that humans were to stay away from them, but they had also drilled into his head since childhood that you don't ignore a distress call. "Ever. Set course for Hygeia," he said. "Full speed." The Harmony turned and accelerated. It took them 40 minutes to reach the signal source. What they found made Daejung's blood run cold. A coalition mining ship hung dead in space, its hull torn open. Debris floated around it like a cloud. The ship's reactor must have failed catastrophically. There would be radiation everywhere. "Life signs?" Daejung asked. Subin worked her console frantically. "Yes. I'm reading 17, maybe 18 survivors. They're in an emergency shelter, in the aft section. But Captain, the shelter's losing atmosphere. They have maybe 2 hours. Any coalition rescue ships nearby?" "Negative. The nearest patrol is 6 hours away." HFY, the ship's doctor, stepped onto the bridge. She was older than Daejung, with gray streaking through her black hair. She had been a trauma surgeon before joining the Harmony. "If we don't help them, they'll die," she said simply. "If we do help them, the coalition might see it as an act of aggression," the navigator warned. "We're not supposed to cross into their patrol zones. They might fire on us." Daejung looked at the dying ship on his screen. Somewhere inside, 17 people were waiting for rescue that wouldn't arrive in time. They were probably terrified. They were probably wondering if anyone would come. "Prepare for emergency docking," he said. HFY, get your medical team ready. Subin, broadcast our intentions on all coalition frequencies. Make it clear we're here to help, not to attack. The Harmony maneuvered carefully through the debris field. Docking with a damaged ship was always dangerous, but the crew managed it. The airlock connected with a solid thunk. "Radiation levels are high but manageable," HFY reported. "We can work in there for about 90 minutes before it becomes dangerous. Then we better work fast." They found the survivors huddled in a space barely large enough for them all. Most were injured. The species varied. Some were like kicks, with 4 legs and shimmering skin. Others resembled birds or lizards or things that had no Earth equivalent. All of them stared at the humans with wide, terrified eyes. One of them, a female with blue scales and a long tail, hissed when HFY approached. "We're here to help," HFY said gently. "Your ship is dying. We need to get you out of here." "You're humans," another survivor said. This one looked like a small bear covered in silver fur. "You're dangerous. You'll hurt us." "We're doctors," HFY said firmly. She knelt beside a wounded alien who seemed to be unconscious. "This one needs immediate care or he'll die. Will you let me help him?" The blue-scaled female moved to block her. "How do we know you won't harvest his organs? You're predators. Everyone knows what humans do." HFY looked up at her with tired eyes. "You're going to die if you stay here. All of you. We can either argue about what humans might do, or we can save lives. Your choice." The survivors looked at each other. Fear battled with desperation on their faces. Finally, the small bear creature nodded. Help him, please." For the next hour, HFY and her team worked miracles. They stabilized the wounded, splinted broken limbs, stopped bleeding. The survivors watched in amazement as the humans moved efficiently through the cramped space, carrying aliens to the Harmony's medical bay. One survivor, a child who looked like a tiny version of Kix, clung to Subin as she carried him to safety. "Are you going to eat me?" he asked in a small voice. Subin laughed despite herself. "No, little one. We're going to make sure you're safe. But you're a predator. You have forward-facing eyes. That means you hunt. I also have these," Subin said, showing him her hands. "We use these to help people, to build things, to create. Just because we can hunt doesn't mean we do." The last survivor they brought aboard was an engineer, the one HFY had first wanted to help. His condition was critical. He had severe radiation poisoning and internal injuries. HFY worked on him for hours in the medical bay, while the Harmony made its way back toward the inner solar system. The other survivors watched through the window. They saw HFY check his vital signs again and again. They saw her inject medicines, adjust equipment, monitor readouts. They saw her work without stopping, not even to eat or rest. "She's been working for 12 hours straight," the blue-scaled female whispered. "Why would she do that for one of us?" "Because he's dying," the small bear said quietly. "And she's a doctor." At hour 30, the engineer's vital signs stabilized. HFY finally stepped away from the table, swaying with exhaustion. One of her assistants caught her before she fell. "He'll live," she said, her voice hoarse. "He'll need more treatment, but he'll live." The blue-scaled female stared at her. "You saved him. You worked for 30 hours to save someone you don't even know. Someone whose people imprisoned your species." HFY looked at her with bleary eyes. "That's what doctors do. We save lives, all lives." When Coalition patrol ships finally intercepted the Harmony, they found 17 grateful survivors and one exhausted human crew. The patrol captain listened to the survivors' reports with growing confusion. "They saved us," the engineer said. He was conscious now, though weak. "They risked their ship, their lives, to pull us from that wreck. And they asked for nothing in return. But they crossed the blockade line," the patrol captain said. "That's a violation of the quarantine. They saved our lives," the blue-scaled female said firmly. "Without them, we would all be dead." The patrol captain didn't know what to do. Technically, the humans had violated the quarantine, but they had also saved 17 Coalition citizens. How do you punish someone for a rescue? In the end, they let the Harmony return to the inner solar system with a warning. But the incident was reported to Viridian Prime, and word spread quickly through Coalition space. Humans had crossed the blockade. Humans had interfered with Coalition citizens. The propaganda networks had a field day. Some said it was a trick, that the humans had damaged the mining ship themselves to create an excuse to cross the line. Others said the humans were studying Coalition biology for weapons research. A few even suggested the rescue was fake, staged to make humans seem harmless. Admiral Rixtal, commander of the blockade fleet, read the reports with a growing sense of unease. He had been watching humans for 5 years now. They stayed in their system, built their stations, lived their lives. They didn't seem dangerous. They seemed trapped and sad. But orders were orders. The Council had classified humans as hazardous, and the blockade would continue. If anything, it might need to be strengthened after this incident. On Earth, news of the rescue spread quickly. People celebrated. Finally, they thought, the Coalition will see that we're not monsters. Finally, they'll understand. But in the Coalition Council chambers, Velmora and the other representatives saw something different. They saw humans who ignored boundaries, humans who crossed restricted zones, humans who couldn't be controlled. "They're testing us," Kix said during the emergency session. "This rescue was just an excuse. They wanted to see how we would react." "Or maybe," said a small voice from the back, They really did just want to help, but that voice was drowned out by the others. The council voted to increase the blockade. More ships, more weapons, more restrictions. When Daejung heard the news, he sat in his quarters and stared at the wall. They had done the right thing. They had saved lives. And somehow, it had made everything worse. Subin found him there hours later. The child survivor had drawn her a picture before leaving with the patrol ships. It showed a human and an alien holding hands. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" she asked. Daejung looked at the drawing. "I don't know. But we have to keep trying. We have to keep being who we are, even when they won't see it." Outside the ship, the blockade grew stronger. Humanity's cage was getting smaller. And somewhere in Coalition space, fear of humans was spreading faster than ever. The Deep Space Observatory on the edge of Coalition territory detected them first. Strange readings, unlike anything in their databases. Objects moving through space at impossible speeds, coming from a direction where nothing should exist. The technician on duty thought it was a malfunction. She ran diagnostics 3 times before accepting that the readings were real. Then she sent an urgent message to Viridian Prime. Chancellor Velmora was in a meeting when the alert arrived. She had been discussing trade agreements, boring but necessary work. The message made her branches go rigid with shock. Unknown vessels detected. Approximately 300 signatures. Estimated time to Coalition border: 16 hours. The Council convened an emergency session. Every representative arrived within the hour. They gathered in the chamber, voices rising in confusion and fear. "Who are they?" Kix demanded. "We know every spacefaring species in this sector." "We don't know," Velmora admitted. "They're not responding to our hails. They're not broadcasting any identification. They're just coming." Admiral Rixtal appeared on the holographic display. He looked tired. "We're moving the Third Fleet to intercept." "But Chancellor, if these ships are hostile, and there are really 300 of them, we're going to need reinforcements. Pull ships from the inner patrols," Velmora ordered. "Every vessel that can fight." "What about the human quarantine?" Rixtal asked. Velmora's branches trembled. "Keep the minimum required ships on station. Everything else goes to the border." Velmora's. The fleet assembled as quickly as they could, but it wasn't quick enough. The unknown vessels reached the first colony world, a place called Ixtara. Before the Coalition ships could intercept, what happened next was captured on automated security cameras. The footage would haunt the galaxy for years to come. The alien ships were enormous, each one the size of a city. They were dark, almost black, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. When they reached Ixtara, they didn't slow down. They didn't broadcast demands or threats. They simply opened fire. The weapons they used were unlike anything the Coalition had seen. Beams of energy that didn't just destroy, but seemed to dissolve matter itself. Buildings turned to dust. Ships vanished. The planet's shields, which had protected it for centuries, collapsed in seconds. Then, the real horror began. The ships descended to the surface and began harvesting. Giant appendages emerged from their hulls and dug into the ground. They didn't want resources or land. They wanted the organic matter itself. Trees, plants, animals, people, everything living was consumed. 2 million colonists lived on Ixtara. Within 6 hours, the planet was silent and gray, lifeless. The Coalition fleet arrived to find nothing but dust and death. Admiral Rixtal stared at the dead world on his screen and felt something he had never felt before. True terror. "Fire all weapons," he ordered. "Don't let them leave." The fleet opened fire with everything they had. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic weapons, the full might of Coalition military technology. The unknown ship's shields absorbed it all. Not deflected, not damaged. absorbed. The energy seemed to make them stronger. Then the unknown ships returned fire. In the first minute, the coalition lost 30 ships. In the first hour, they lost 100. Admiral Rixtal ordered a retreat before his entire fleet was destroyed. The unknown ships didn't pursue. They had already finished with Ixtara. They were moving toward the next colony world. In the council chamber, panic had replaced order. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding answers, demanding solutions. Velmora struggled to maintain control. "Who are they?" the jellyfish representative screamed. "What do they want?" "We've been analyzing their ships," said the coalition's head scientist. Her image appeared on a holographic display. "They're silicon-based. Not organic like us. They communicate through some kind of quantum entanglement, a hive mind. And they feed on organic matter. They're not here to conquer. They're here to eat." The chamber fell silent. The full horror of their situation became clear. This wasn't an invasion. It was a harvest. "How do we fight them?" Kix asked. His voice was small. "We don't know," the scientist admitted. "Our weapons are useless. They adapt to every tactic within hours. When we used energy weapons, they developed resistance. When we used kinetic weapons, they did the same. It's like they learn from everything we do." "What about their weaknesses?" Velmora demanded. "Everything has weaknesses. We haven't found any yet." Over the next week, 3 more colonies fell. The pattern was always the same. The ships arrived, overwhelmed the defenses, and consumed everything. Millions died. Billions more evacuated, fleeing deeper into coalition space. The aliens were given a name, the Varn Collective. It came from a dying message sent by a researcher on the second colony to fall. She had been studying them until the last moment, trying to find some way to stop them. Kix's homeworld was the 4th target. He watched from Viridian Prime as his planet died. The screens showed his cities crumbling, his people running, the Varn ships descending like locusts. He watched until the transmission cut out, and then he collapsed in his chair and didn't move for hours. Admiral Rixtal's fleet made 3 more attempts to stop the Varn. Each time, they lost more ships. Each time, the Varn adapted faster. After the 3rd battle, Rixtal had lost 2/3 of his fleet. The coalition military, which had kept peace for 1,000 years, was being destroyed in days. The council met again and again, but they had no answers. Every strategy failed. Every weapon proved useless. The Varn were like a force of nature, unstoppable and inevitable. "We need to evacuate the core worlds," one representative suggested. "Get as many people away as we can." "Where would they go?" another asked. "The Varn will just follow. They'll consume world after world until there's nothing left. Then we need help," a small voice said. Everyone turned. It was a young representative, newly appointed after her predecessor died on Ixtara. She looked terrified, but determined. "Help from where?" Velmora asked. "We've contacted every coalition member. Every ship that can fight is already fighting." "Not every species," the young representative said. "There's one we haven't asked." The chamber went silent. Everyone knew what she meant, but no one wanted to say it. Kix finally spoke, his voice hollow. "You mean the humans? They're dangerous." Another representative said immediately. "Class 5. Hazardous. We quarantined them for good reason. We quarantined them. They won for good reason. They're also survivors," the young representative said. "You classified them as dangerous because they survived ice ages and extinctions, because they're adaptable and unpredictable, because they don't give up." She looked around the chamber. "Isn't that exactly what we need right now?" "They're primitive," Kix said. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. What could they possibly do that we can't?" "I don't know," the young representative admitted. "But we've tried everything we can think of, and it hasn't worked. Maybe we need someone who thinks differently, someone who doesn't follow our rules or our tactics. Velmora's branches swayed slowly. She was thinking. Around her, the council argued. Some supported asking the humans. Most were against it. They were afraid, both of the Varn and of what humanity might do if released from quarantine. But Velmora was looking at a different screen, one that showed casualty estimates. 15 million dead already. Another 20 colonies in the Varn's path. If they didn't stop them soon, the number would climb to billions. Tens of billions. She thought about the human rescue mission 5 years ago. How they had crossed the blockade to save coalition citizens. How their doctor had worked for 30 hours straight to save one life. She remembered dismissing it as a trick, a manipulation. Maybe she had been wrong. "We will send a message to Earth," Velmora announced. The chamber erupted in protests. But she raised her branches for silence. "I will send it myself. I will explain the situation and ask for their help. If they refuse, we are no worse off than we are now. If they accept..." She paused. "If they accept, perhaps their dangerousness is exactly what we need. And if they use this opportunity to attack us," Kix demanded. "If they see our weakness and decide to take revenge for the quarantine," Velmora looked at him, "then I will have made a terrible mistake, and the consequences will be my responsibility. But if I do nothing, we all die anyway. At least this way, there's a chance." That night, Velmora sat alone in her chambers and composed the message. It was harder than any speech she had ever written. Admitting weakness, asking for help from those she had rejected, acknowledging that perhaps the council had been wrong. "People of Earth," she began. "We do not deserve your help. We judged you without knowing you. We imprisoned you out of fear. But now we face extinction. And we have nowhere else to turn. The Varn Collective is consuming our worlds. Our weapons cannot stop them. If you have any compassion, if you believe in helping those in need even when they have wronged you, please come. We are begging you." She sent the message and waited. It would take hours to reach Earth, and then humanity would have to decide. Would they help? Would they ignore the plea? Would they laugh at the species that had called them monsters? Velmora didn't know. But she hoped. Against all logic, against all her previous judgment of humanity, she hoped they would be better than the coalition had been. The message reached Earth at 3:47 UTC. Within minutes, every major government had received a copy. By sunrise, the entire world knew. The aliens who had locked humanity in a cage for 5 years were asking for help. Public reaction was mixed. Some people wanted to refuse, to let the coalition face the consequences of their fear. Others pointed out that billions of innocent lives were at stake. The debate raged across every media platform, every government chamber, every dinner table on Earth. Tae-hyun watched the news reports from his apartment in Seoul. He was older now, his hair graying at the temples. The rejection at Viridian Prime had ended his diplomatic career, but he had stayed involved in alien relations, advising the government from the shadows. His tablet chimed. A message from the UN Secretary General. "Emergency meeting in 2 hours. Your presence is requested." The world leaders gathered in New York. They came in person, not by video link. This decision was too important for anything less than face-to-face discussion. Tae-hyun sat in the back of the room and watched history unfold. The debate lasted 6 hours. Every argument was made. Every perspective was voiced. The room was divided almost evenly between those who wanted to help and those who didn't. Then Ji-woo spoke. She had spent the last 5 years studying everything humanity could learn about the galaxy from behind their blockade. She had analyzed every transmission, every piece of data. She was now Earth's leading expert on alien biology. "I've reviewed the data on the Varn Collective," she said. "They're a hive mind. They think as one, which makes them efficient, but also predictable. They adapt to threats using collective memory, but that's also their weakness. They expect patterns. They expect logic. And humans don't follow patterns? Someone asked. Jiwoo smiled grimly. We're the least predictable species we know. Every human thinks differently. Every human fights differently. We're creative, improvisational, and frankly, a little bit crazy by galactic standards. The Coalition saw that as a threat. Against the Varn, it might be an advantage. So you think we can win? The Secretary General asked. I think we can surprise them, Jiwoo said carefully. And sometimes, surprise is enough. More arguments followed. More debates. But slowly, consensus began to form. Humanity couldn't stand by and watch billions die. No matter how those beings had treated them. It wasn't about revenge or proving themselves. It was about being who they wanted to be. Not who others feared they were. The vote was called. The result was unanimous. Earth would answer the call. Admiral Dae-jung was in his office when he got the orders. He read them 3 times, making sure he understood correctly. Then, he called his crew. We're being activated, he told them. Full military deployment. Destination: Coalition space. Are we going to war? Subin asked. Yes, Dae-jung said, but not with the Coalition. We're going to help them. Across Earth and its colonies, the call went out. Every military vessel, every pilot, every soldier. This would be an all-volunteer mission. No one would be ordered to fight for the species that had imprisoned them. Within 48 hours, 1,200 ships had volunteered. It was nearly the entire human fleet. Pilots sent messages to their families, making arrangements in case they didn't return. Engineers worked around the clock to prepare the vessels. Scientists like Jiwoo shared everything they knew about the Varn. Hae-won was among the volunteers. She was older now, with more gray in her hair, but her hands were still steady. She organized medical teams for both human and alien casualties. When someone asked why she would risk her life for aliens who had rejected them, she just shrugged. People need help, she said simply. The fleet gathered near Mars for final preparations. It was an impressive sight, even by human standards. Cruisers, frigates, carriers, and support vessels, all ready to jump through the wormhole gate. Taehyun stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the ships take formation. He had been asked to join as a military coordinator, someone who understood both warfare and diplomacy. He had accepted immediately. Do you think they'll trust us? Subin asked. She was serving as communications officer on the flagship. Probably not, Taehyun admitted. But we're not doing this for trust. We're doing it because it's right. The fleet jumped toward Coalition space. The wormhole journey took 3 days. During that time, Taehyun worked with Jiwoo and the tactical team, planning strategies. The Varn adapt to patterns. Jiwoo explained to the assembled captains. So we don't use patterns. Every ship fights independently. Every captain makes their own decisions. Be creative. Be unpredictable. Make them think you're crazy. One captain, a Korean woman named Kyung-soo, laughed. Make them think we're crazy? That's your military strategy? It's the best one we have, Jiwoo said seriously. The Coalition fights with coordination and logic. It doesn't work on the Varn. So we fight with chaos and improvisation. Use tactics that don't make sense. Do things no sane commander would do. Keep them guessing. This is either brilliant or suicidal, another captain muttered. Probably both, Dae-jung said. Welcome to the human way of war. When the fleet emerged in Coalition space, they found Admiral Rixtal's battered ships waiting. The alien admiral had been ordered to meet them, though he clearly didn't want to. His fleet was a fraction of its original size, and the surviving ships were damaged. Rixtal's face appeared on the main screen. He looked exhausted and wary. You came, he said. It wasn't quite a question or a statement. Just surprise. Of course we came, Dae-jung replied. You asked for help, after everything we did to you. That doesn't matter right now. Where are the Varn? Rixtal transmitted coordinates. 3 systems away. They're consuming another colony as we speak. We've lost 19 worlds. Over 50 million dead. And we still can't stop them. Then it's time to try something different, Taehyun said. Admiral, we need all the tactical data you have. Battle records, sensor readings, everything. Over the next hours, the human fleet absorbed 5 years' worth of coalition military intelligence. They studied the Varn's patterns, their tactics, their adaptations, and then they planned an attack that broke every rule of conventional warfare. This is insane, Rixtal said when he saw the plan. Half these maneuvers will get your ships destroyed. Rixtar. 7. Rixtar, probably, Daejung agreed. But they'll also be completely unexpected. The Varn won't know how to respond. You're going to sacrifice ships deliberately? Use them as bait? We're going to do whatever it takes, Taehyun said firmly. That's what you asked for, isn't it? Help? The combined fleet jumped toward the Varn position. As they approached, every human captain received the same order. Fight your way. Trust your instincts. Be unpredictable. The Varn were still feeding on the colony when the fleet arrived. Their massive ships hung in orbit, appendages extending down to the surface like the roots of some horrible tree. All ships, engage at will, Daejung ordered. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships didn't form neat formations. They didn't coordinate their attacks. They scattered in every direction and came at the Varn from impossible angles. Kyung-soo flew her fighter straight at a Varn capital ship, fired all her missiles at once, then dove under it and came back for another pass from behind. It made no tactical sense, but the Varn's defensive systems couldn't predict her movements. A cruiser captain named Dong-hyun used his ship's thrusters to spin while firing, creating a spiral pattern of weapons fire that confused the Varn targeting systems. Another captain, Min Seo, deliberately flew into an asteroid field and used the rocks as cover, popping out at random intervals to attack. The Varn tried to adapt, but they couldn't find the pattern because there was no pattern. Every human fought differently. Every attack was unique. Then Kyung-soo's fighter took critical damage. Her engines failed, and she was drifting toward a Varn ship. Ejection systems were offline. She was trapped. Instead of waiting to die, she armed her ship's self-destruct and used the last of her maneuvering thrusters to aim directly at the Varn ship's largest weapon port. For Earth, she said calmly, and hit the button. The explosion was massive. Her fighter's reactor detonated inside the Varn ship's weapon system. The entire section exploded, crippling the massive vessel. Across the battlefield, other human pilots saw what she had done, and some of them made the same choice when their ships were crippled. They turned themselves into weapons, ramming Varn ships at critical points, self-destructing in vulnerable locations. It was suicidal. It was desperate. It was completely unpredictable. The Varn, for the first time, began to retreat. Their hive mind couldn't comprehend an enemy that would deliberately sacrifice themselves, not for victory, but just to do more damage. It didn't fit any pattern they knew. They're pulling back, Rixtal said in disbelief. They're actually retreating. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the humans had lost 97 ships, but they had destroyed 12 Varn vessels and driven off the rest. The colony below was saved, though badly damaged. Rixtal stared at the battlefield, at the wreckage of human ships floating among the Varn debris. You're all insane, he said quietly. Every single one of you. Maybe, Daejung said tiredly. But we won, didn't we? On Viridian Prime, Chancellor Velmora watched the battle reports with her branches trembling. The humans had done the impossible. They had driven back the Varn, but the cost had been terrible. They sacrificed so many, she whispered, for people who rejected them. They're dangerous, Kik said beside her. But his voice lacked conviction now. We were right to fear them. Were we? Velmora asked. Or were we just afraid of what we didn't understand? In the medical bay of the flagship, HFY worked on casualties from both human and coalition ships. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, treating burns and wounds without distinction between species. A young coalition medic watched her work in awe. Why do you help us? After everything, HFY didn't look up from her patient. Because you need help. That's reason enough. The first battle was won. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The main Varn fleet was still out there, and they would be coming soon. 2 weeks after the first victory, the combined fleet waited at the Nexus Gate. It was a massive wormhole structure, built by the Coalition centuries ago, connecting the outer territories to the core worlds. If the Varn passed through here, they would have access to the heart of Coalition space. 50 billion people lived on the worlds beyond the gate. This was the line that could not break. Daejung stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical displays. The scouts had confirmed it. The main Varn fleet was coming. 300 ships, the full force of their invasion. Against them, the combined coalition and human fleet numbered only 120 vessels. We're outnumbered more than 2 to 1, Admiral Rixtal said. His hologram stood beside Daejung. Over the past 2 weeks, the alien admiral had learned to respect the humans, though he still didn't fully understand them. Even with your unorthodox tactics, those are terrible odds. We've faced worse, Daejung said, though he wasn't sure if that was true. He looked at his crew. Su Bin at communications, looking determined despite her fear. The navigator, hands steady on the controls. HFY in the medical bay below, preparing for casualties. We just need to hold them here long enough for the evacuation to complete. And if we can't hold them? Daejung didn't answer. They both knew what would happen. Taehyun was in the strategy room with Jiwoo and a group of coalition scientists. They had been working non-stop, trying to find a weakness in the Varn's defenses. The walls were covered with diagrams and calculations. There has to be something, Taehyun said, studying the data for the 100th time. Some way to stop them permanently. The gate itself, Jiwoo said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. What if we overload the Nexus Gate? That's impossible, one of the coalition scientists said. The gate is designed with multiple safety systems. It can't be overloaded. Not accidentally, Jiwoo agreed. But what if we did it deliberately? If we forced too much energy through the gate's matrix, we could create a massive gravity well. It would trap anything nearby. It would also destroy the gate, another scientist said. We'd lose access to this entire sector, but it would trap the Varn fleet, Taehyun said, understanding. They'd all be caught in the gravity field. For how long? Jiwoo did quick calculations on her tablet. Long enough to destroy them. Maybe 15, 20 minutes. Before the field collapses. How do we overload the gate? Taehyun asked. The coalition scientists exchanged glances. Someone would have to do it manually, from inside the gate structure. The automated systems would prevent it otherwise. They'd need to bypass the safety protocols, redirect the power flow, and maintain the overload until the field forms. How long would that take? 4, maybe 5 minutes. And the person doing it would be exposed to radiation levels that would be fatal to any coalition species within seconds. The room fell silent. Taehyun looked at Jiwoo. She was running more calculations. Her face pale. A human could survive it, she said quietly. Maybe. Our redundant organs, our healing factors, our higher tolerance for radiation. A human might last long enough to complete the task. Might, one of the scientists emphasized. The odds of survival are very low. But it's possible, Taehyun said. Barely. Taehyun straightened. Then that's what we'll do. I'll volunteer. Taehyun. Taehyun. You're the military coordinator, Jiwoo protested. The fleet needs you. The fleet needs someone to trigger the gate. I'm trained for high-risk operations. I'll go. Before Jiwoo could argue further, Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The Varn had arrived. The enemy fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of locusts. 300 massive vessels, each one bristling with weapons. They moved in perfect formation, their hive mind coordinating every action. All ships, battle stations. De Jong ordered. Execute. Plan. Delta 7. The human and coalition ships scattered immediately, forming no recognizable pattern. They had learned from the first battle. Chaos was their friend. Predictability was death. The battle began with a fury that shook space itself. Missiles streaked through the darkness. Energy beams carved through hulls. Ships exploded in silent flashes of light. The Varn advanced steadily, their superior numbers overwhelming the defenders. Kyung-soo had survived the first battle, though her fighter had been replaced twice. She led a squadron of human and coalition pilots in a desperate attack on the Varn's left flank, trying to draw ships away from the gate. Break formation, she ordered. Independent attacks. Make them chase us. Her squadron scattered. Some dove low, some went high, some flew in spirals. The Varn tried to target them but couldn't predict their movements. It slowed the enemy advance, but only slightly. On the flagship, Tae-hyun was preparing for his mission. He wore a heavy radiation suit and carried equipment to override the gate's systems. Dae-jung met him at the shuttle bay. "You don't have to do this," the admiral said. "We can find another way." "There is no other way," Tae-hyun replied. "You know that." He paused. "If I don't make it, tell Earth that we did our best. Tell them that humanity proved who we really are. You'll tell them yourself when you get back." Tae-hyun smiled. The small team consisted of 4 volunteers: Tae-hyun, Kyung-soo, who had insisted on piloting them in, Soo-bin, who knew the gate's systems, and 2 coalition engineers who wanted to help despite knowing they couldn't survive the radiation. The shuttle launched into the middle of the battle. Kyung-soo flew like a woman possessed, dodging weapons, fire, and debris. Twice they were nearly hit. 3 times they had to take the long way around enemy positions. But they made it to the gate structure. The gate was enormous, a ring of metal and energy 5 kilometers across. The team docked at a maintenance port and entered the structure's interior. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows. "Radiation levels are already elevated," Soo-bin reported. "We have maybe 20 minutes before it becomes critical for humans. Then, we better work fast," Tae-hyun said. The coalition engineers guided them through the maze of corridors to the main power control center. Along the way, they passed viewports showing the battle outside. Human and coalition ships were fighting desperately, but they were being pushed back. The Varn were winning. At the control center, Soo-bin and the engineers began working on the systems. It was complicated, dangerous work. One wrong move could cause the gate to explode instead of overload. "I'm bypassing the first safety protocol," Soo-bin said, her fingers flying over the controls. "Redirecting power from the auxiliary systems. Kyung-soo, I need you to manually disconnect the emergency shutdown circuits." While they worked, Tae-hyun watched the battle through a small screen. He saw a human cruiser take 3 direct hits and explode. He saw a coalition carrier ram a Varn ship to protect a damaged frigate. He saw fighters spiraling through the darkness, some human, some alien, all fighting together. "Ready," Soo-bin announced. "On your order, Ambassador." Tae-hyun took a deep breath. "Do it." The gate began to hum. Energy levels spiked. Warning alarms blared. The coalition engineers worked frantically to maintain the overload, rerouting power, adjusting flows. "It's working," one of them gasped. "The gravity well is forming. But the radiation levels are climbing faster than expected." Through the viewports, space began to distort around the gate. The Varn fleet, which had been approaching, suddenly found themselves caught in an invisible trap. Their ship's engines strained against the pull, but they couldn't escape. The field will hold for 18 minutes, Subin calculated. That should be enough to destroy their fleet. Then our job is done, Taehyun said. We can't leave yet, one of the coalition engineers said. Someone needs to maintain the overload manually, or the field will collapse early. I'll stay, Taehyun said. The rest of you go. The radiation is too high, the engineer protested. Even for a human. You won't survive. Then I won't survive, Taehyun said calmly. But those ships out there will have time to destroy the Varn fleet. That's what matters. Subin grabbed his arm. Ambassador, please. That's an order, Lieutenant. Get everyone to the shuttle. Kyung-soo stepped forward. I'll stay with you. You might need help with the systems. Pilot, you're needed to fly the shuttle. I can fly it, Subin said quietly. She looked at Kyung-soo and nodded. We'll both get them out. Taehyun wanted to argue, but there was no time. The radiation levels were climbing. Fine. But everyone else leaves now. The coalition engineers hesitated, then bowed their heads in respect. We will remember this, one of them said. Subin hugged Taehyun quickly. See you on the other side, Ambassador. Then, she herded the coalition engineers toward the shuttle. Alone in the control center, Taehyun and Kyung-soo worked to maintain the overload. The radiation was intense now. Even through their suits, Taehyun could feel it. A burning sensation in his bones. Warning lights flashed on his suit's display. His body was taking damage faster than it could heal. Status of the Varn fleet? He asked. Kyung-soo checked the screens. The gravity well is holding them. Our ships are concentrating fire. 12 Varn vessels destroyed. 20. 35. She smiled. We're winning. How long until the field collapses? 14 minutes. They worked in silence, adjusting controls, rerouting power. The pain was getting worse. Taehyun's hands shook. He could taste blood in his mouth. But he kept working. 60 Varn ships destroyed. Kyung-soo reported. Her voice was strained. She was suffering too. Almost halfway there. We just need to hold on, Taehyun said. At the 10-minute mark, Taehyun collapsed. The radiation had overwhelmed his body's ability to compensate. Kyung-soo dragged him to a chair and kept working alone, her own body failing but her hands still steady. 100 Varn ships destroyed, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper now. 150, 200. Outside, the combined fleet was doing its job. Every ship poured fire into the trapped Varn vessels. The aliens tried to adapt, tried to defend themselves, but caught in the gravity well. They were helpless. Dae-jung watched from his flagship as the Varn fleet died. He thought about Taehyun and Kyung-soo, sacrificing themselves to make this possible. He thought about all the humans who had volunteered, who had crossed the galaxy to help species that had rejected them. All Varn vessels destroyed, the tactical officer reported. Get rescue teams to the gate immediately, Dae-jung ordered. Find our people. They found Taehyun and Kyung-soo unconscious, but alive, their bodies ravaged by radiation. Haewon worked on them for hours, using every technique she knew. Their redundant organs had saved them, but barely. 3 days later, Taehyun woke in the medical bay. His body ached, and he felt weak, but he was alive. Haewon stood beside his bed. You shouldn't have survived, she said. By all medical logic, you should be dead. Humans are stubborn, Taehyun said weakly. We don't follow logic. Apparently not. She smiled. You'll need months of recovery. Chancellor Velmora came to visit him the next day. Her branches trembled as she entered the medical bay. She looked at Taehyun for a long moment before speaking. You saved us, she said. All of us. 50 billion lives. We did what anyone should do. Taehyun replied. We helped. After everything we did to you. After we called you threatening. After we locked you away. Velmora's voice broke. We were wrong about your species. We saw your strength and called it dangerous. We saw your resilience and called it threatening. We were afraid of what we didn't understand. Fear is natural, Taehyun said. What matters is what you do with it. The next day, the Coalition Council held a formal ceremony on Viridian Prime. Velmora stood before the entire assembly, with human and Coalition representatives watching. The quarantine of Earth is hereby ended, she announced. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Coalition, with all rights and privileges. Furthermore, Earth will be given a seat on the High Council, in recognition of their sacrifice and their courage. The chamber erupted in applause. Even Kix, who had been humanity's greatest critic, stood and bowed toward the human delegation. Later, Velmora and Taehyun stood together in a garden on Viridian Prime. They planted a tree together, human and alien, working side by side. It was a cherry tree from Earth, chosen for its beauty and symbolism. On Earth, cherry trees represent renewal and hope, Taehyun explained. They bloom every spring, no matter how harsh the winter was. A fitting symbol, Velmora said, for both our species. Years later, a human child and an alien child played in the rebuilt colonies. They ran through streets where both languages were spoken, where human and Coalition citizens lived side by side. The war was a memory now, a story their parents told about the day everything changed. The child's mother watched them play and smiled. She was Subin, now a captain of her own ship. She thought about that day at the gate, about the ambassador and Kyungsoo who had nearly died to save billions. She thought about how humanity had been called threatening, had been locked away, and how they had responded with courage instead of anger. Her child laughed as the alien child chased them through the garden. Different species, different worlds, but playing together like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. Maybe it should have been all along. The galaxy had called humans threatening. They were right. Humans were dangerous, capable of incredible violence, and willing to make terrible sacrifices. But they had learned what the rest of the galaxy was now learning. The most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the one who can fight. It's the one who chooses not to, until someone needs them. Then nothing in the galaxy can stand in their way.